When you begin to understand the psychology of attraction, one truth becomes crystal clear: mystery is power. The more mysterious you appear, the more compelling you become. Think about it: when something is rare, when it's not easily available, people instinctively assign it more value. It's the same with your attention, your time, your energy. If you're always giving, always chasing, always available at her command, you lose that sense of value. But when you step back, when you create space, when you choose not to run after her like every other man does, she begins to feel that difference deep inside. And that difference is what makes her wonder about you, think about you, even crave you. Women are naturally curious. They're drawn to what they can't immediately figure out, and they're fascinated by what feels just out of reach. When you ignore her, not in a cruel or dismissive way, but in a way that communicates you are focused on your own life, she starts to question what's going on in your mind. She wonders why you're not responding the way others do. She begins to ask herself, what makes this man different? Why doesn't he react like the rest? Why does it feel like I have to earn his attention instead of it being given to me on demand? And once those questions start circling in her mind, you've already created an emotional impact that simple compliments or constant messages could never achieve. Mystery triggers desire because the unknown is more exciting than the known. When she can't fully read you, when she can't fully predict you, she invests more energy into trying to figure you out. That's how human nature works. We chase the things that feel uncertain. We crave the things that feel scarce. We value the things that require effort to obtain. By ignoring her a little, by not constantly feeding her ego, you are creating that exact dynamic. Suddenly, your silence is louder than words. Your absence becomes more noticeable than your presence ever was, and in that space, attraction starts to build. Now, let's be clear. Ignoring doesn't mean treating her badly. It doesn't mean disrespecting her or showing coldness for the sake of it. True power is subtle. It's about discipline, about restraint, about knowing when to engage and when to step back. When you ignore her, it should come from a place of self-control, not bitterness. You are not seeking to punish her. You are demonstrating that your attention is not something she can take for granted. You are showing her, without words, that you are a man with priorities, with purpose, with self-respect. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you remind her that you are not like the others. Every time you don't respond instantly, you remind her that your life doesn't revolve around her. And every time you focus on yourself instead of obsessing over her, you send the most powerful message a man can give. My attention is earned, not given freely. Women feel that. They may not admit it, but they feel it. They feel the gap, the space, the silence. And that space makes them want to fill it with your presence again. Think about times in your own life when someone pulled away from you, when someone didn't give you the response you expected. Didn't you find yourself thinking about it more? Didn't it replay in your head? That's the exact same effect happening here. Your decision to ignore her in moments where most men would run after her leaves her with an unanswered question. And unanswered questions are the seeds of obsession. She begins to replay your behavior, trying to interpret it. She starts analyzing your actions, wondering if you're losing interest, wondering if someone else has your attention, wondering if she did something wrong. That mental effort she spends thinking about you is exactly what deepens her emotional connection. While other men smother her with attention and lose her interest, you create contrast by doing the opposite. You let her come to you. And in doing so, you stand out in her world like a flame in the dark. The beauty of this is that it flips the dynamic. Instead of you chasing her, she begins to chase your attention. Instead of you trying to prove your worth, she starts trying to prove hers. All because you had the strength to hold back, to resist, to be mysterious. That is the power of scarcity. That is the power of ignoring her just enough for her to feel it. And here's the deeper truth. When you ignore her, you are not just creating attraction. You are creating respect. A woman may enjoy attention, but she respects a man who doesn't throw it around cheaply. She admires the one who can control himself, who doesn't crumble under beauty, who knows his own value and won't compromise it. That quiet, disciplined strength is what makes her see you differently. It sets you apart from the endless line of men who are ready to give her everything without her earning it. So the next time you feel the urge to chase, to send another text, to prove yourself with constant attention, pause. Remember the power of mystery. Remember that scarcity creates value. And remember that the more you ignore her, the more she feels it. Most men don't realize how easy it is to lose value in a woman's eyes. They think the more attention they give, the more affection they will receive in return. They believe that constant texting, constant calling, constant chasing will win her over. But the truth is, the more attention you give without her earning it, the less impact it has. Attention, when it's endless and freely available, becomes background noise. It loses its meaning, and what once could have made her feel special now feels ordinary. That's why understanding the balance between attention and indifference is one of the most powerful skills a man can ever learn. A woman may smile when she gets your attention, but she only truly values it when it's rare. She only craves it when it's not always available on demand. This is why the men who constantly bombard her with validation, with likes, with comments, with compliments, rarely get taken seriously. They think they're proving their interest, but all they're really proving is that they're no different from the rest. And when you blend in with the crowd, you lose all uniqueness. That's when she tunes you out because nothing about you stands out anymore. Indifference, on the other hand, is magnetic. When you don't rush to reply, when you don't immediately feed her ego, when you're calm and centered instead of desperate and eager, she feels it. She feels that you are not hooked on her like everyone else. She feels that your validation isn't easy to win, and that makes her value it far more. She starts to see that your attention is not guaranteed. It's something that must be earned. That is what flips the dynamic completely. The difference between attention and indifference lies in emotional control. Most men give attention because they're seeking a reaction. They're addicted to that little hit of dopamine that comes when she replies, when she smiles, when she gives back even a fraction of what they put in. But the man who understands the power of indifference doesn't need that constant reaction. He's not fueled by her validation. He's fueled by his own sense of worth. He can remain calm in silence. He can sit back when she pulls away. He doesn't panic when she tests him. And that calm, grounded energy is what pulls her in closer than constant attention ever could. Imagine two men. One is always texting, always checking in, always asking, "Do you miss me? Do you like me? Are you thinking about me?" The other man is living his life, focused on his goals, answering when he feels like it, engaging when he chooses, but never begging for her time or approval. Which one do you think she finds more attractive? Which one do you think she respects more? It's always the second one. Because deep down, women are not drawn to the man who needs them. They are drawn to the man who doesn't. Indifference creates tension, and tension is what fuels attraction. When she doesn't know exactly how much you care, when she feels a little uncertain about where she stands, her mind becomes occupied with you. She starts thinking about you more, replaying your actions, analyzing your silence. That uncertainty is uncomfortable for her, but it's also what keeps her hooked. The man who gives her endless attention removes all uncertainty, but he also removes all excitement. He makes himself predictable, and predictability kills desire. But the man who balances his attention with indifference keeps her intrigued. She never fully figures him out, and that makes him unforgettable. The beautiful thing about indifference is that it shifts the power dynamic. When you don't hand over your attention so easily, you become the prize. You're no longer running after her, she's running after you. And that's where respect is born. She doesn't just enjoy your attention, she values it. She doesn't just feel flattered by your presence, she feels lucky to have it. All because you had the strength to hold back when others would rush in. But here's the key: indifference is not about being cold or heartless. It's not about playing games or pretending you don't care at all. It's about balance. It's about giving enough attention to show interest, but not so much that you smother her. It's about showing affection when it's genuine, but not using it as a tool to gain her approval. It's about being warm when you choose, but also being completely at peace when you pull back. That balance is rare, and that rarity is what makes it so powerful. Women feel energy more than words. They can tell when a man's attention is given from a place of need versus a place of strength. If your attention comes from desperation, she senses it, and it pushes her away. But if your attention comes from abundance, from a mindset that says, "I'm complete with or without you," she feels that too, and that draws her closer. Indifference communicates abundance. It communicates that your life is full, that you are fulfilled, and that she is an addition, not the center of your world. That's what makes her want to fight for your attention rather than take it for granted. So, the next time you feel the urge to overinvest, to pour out endless attention in hopes of winning her over, stop yourself. Ask, am I giving because I genuinely want to, or because I'm afraid of losing her? If it's fear that drives your actions, you're only weakening your position. But if you can stay calm, if you can stay centered, if you can let her come to you instead of rushing in, you'll find she's far more drawn to you than if you had smothered her with endless affection. Remember this: attention is cheap when it's unlimited, but it becomes priceless when it's rare. Indifference is not neglect, it's strategy. It's the discipline of knowing when to give and when to hold back. And in that discipline lies the secret to attraction, respect, and lasting influence. Because in the end, the man who can master the balance between attention and indifference will always be the man she can't ignore. Silence has a weight that words can never carry. Many men think they need to constantly explain themselves, constantly argue their point, constantly react to every little thing a woman does. They believe that their words will convince her, that their reactions will prove their strength. But the truth is, silence often speaks louder than any sentence could. When you choose not to respond, when you ignore the games, the drama, or the emotional tests, you send a message that is far more powerful than anything you could say. That message is this: I cannot be controlled. I cannot be manipulated. I know my value, and I will not waste energy proving it. Women, whether they realize it or not, will often test a man. It's not because they're cruel or manipulative. It's because they're wired to want to know what kind of man they're dealing with. Will he fold under pressure? Will he beg for her approval? Will he lose his temper at the slightest provocation? Or will he remain calm, steady, grounded no matter what? Every little test is her way of trying to measure your strength. And in those moments, your reaction determines how she feels about you. If you explode, if you argue endlessly, if you chase after her validation, she sees weakness. But if you stay silent, if you refuse to play the game, if you calmly let her energy pass without being dragged into it, she feels your strength. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence. When you don't react, when you don't respond to every provocation, you create an energy that is both mysterious and commanding. She feels that you are not easily swayed. She feels that you are not desperate for her approval. She feels that you live from a place of power, not need. And paradoxically, the less you say, the more she hears. The absence of words makes her think more deeply about her own actions. The lack of a reaction makes her question what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you might do next. In that silence, her imagination fills the gap, and her imagination often creates a much stronger impact than anything you could have said directly. Think of it like this. If you argue with her, if you try to prove yourself through words, she can dismiss them. She can argue back, she can twist your meaning, she can play with your emotions. But when you give her nothing, when you respond with calm silence, there is nothing for her to twist, nothing for her to fight, nothing for her to manipulate. She is left to sit with her own thoughts, and in that stillness she begins to feel the weight of your presence. She realizes you are not a man she can move so easily. She realizes that your emotions are under your control, not hers. That realization is what earns her respect. Silence also creates contrast. Most men can't help themselves. They react instantly. They argue endlessly. They pour out words trying to fix every situation. When you don't, when you choose silence, you stand out. You become different. You become unpredictable. That unpredictability makes her pay more attention to you, not less. Because while she knows exactly how other men will respond, she cannot easily predict you. And that uncertainty draws her in deeper. It's important to understand that silence is not about ignoring her existence. It's about ignoring her attempts to control your frame. If she disrespects you, you don't need to shout. If she plays a game, you don't need to chase. If she tries to pull you into drama, you don't need to defend yourself. Your silence does the work for you. It communicates that you will not engage on her terms. It communicates that your energy is reserved for bigger things. It communicates that you are not threatened, not desperate, not weak. That calm indifference is more powerful than any argument because it cannot be broken. Have you ever noticed how silence lingers in someone's mind longer than words? Think about times when someone important to you chose not to reply, not to react, not to respond. Didn't it make you think about them more? Didn't it make you question what they were feeling? That's the exact same effect here. By holding your silence, you leave her with unanswered questions, and unanswered questions create emotional investment. She begins to spend her energy thinking about you, wondering about you, trying to figure out what's going on in your head. That mental space you occupy is the seed of attraction and respect. Men often fear silence because they think it means losing control. They think, if I don't say something, she'll think I don't care, but the opposite is true. Silence doesn't show weakness, it shows mastery. It shows that you are not ruled by impulse. It shows that you don't feel the need to constantly explain or justify yourself. It shows that you are at peace with yourself, and that peace cannot be disturbed by outside noise. That kind of self-control is rare, and anything rare is automatically valuable. When you learn to master silence, you discover that you don't have to chase. You don't have to convince. You don't have to fight battles that don't matter. You simply stand firm, calm, unshaken, and in doing so, you create more respect than any words ever could. She will remember the man who didn't react when others would have exploded. She will remember the man who didn't beg when others would have chased. She will remember the man who stood silent and strong, because that silence made her feel more than words ever could. So when the moment comes when she tests you, when she pulls away, when she tries to provoke you, don't rush to speak. Don't let your emotions take control. Simply remain still. Let the silence do the work. Let her feel it. Because in that silence, she will see your strength. In that silence, she will sense your control. And in that silence, she will respect you more than if you had said 1,000 words. Because, in the end, words may be forgotten, but silence always echoes. Ignoring her is often misunderstood as an act of coldness or cruelty, but the reality is far different. When done with the right mindset, it is one of the strongest demonstrations of self-respect a man can show. Because in truth, The way you treat yourself sets the tone for how others treat you. When you value yourself, when you put your goals, your standards, and your sense of worth above the need for constant validation, a woman feels that energy. She feels that you are not desperate, not weak, not easily swayed. She feels that you are a man who lives for his purpose, not for her approval. And that realization creates desire in a way that chasing never could. Most men operate from a place of lack. They believe they must constantly give in order to keep her interested. They think if I don't text back right away, she'll lose interest. If I don't compliment her every second, she'll find someone else. That kind of behavior screams insecurity. It shows that you are more invested in her opinion than in your own sense of value. But when you ignore her at the right moments, when you hold back your attention and refuse to bend your life around her moods, you flip the script. Instead of her being the prize, you become the prize. Instead of her wondering whether you'll keep chasing, she begins to wonder how she can earn more of your focus. Self-respect is attractive because it shows discipline. It shows that you don't allow beauty to blind you, that you don't allow desire to strip away your standards. Any man can run after a woman. That requires no strength at all, but it takes control to stay focused on your mission, your work, your path, even when she's tempting you to drop everything for her. That control is what separates you from the rest. She may not always admit it, but deep down she respects the man who doesn't cave, the man who doesn't compromise, the man who makes her rise to meet his standards instead of lowering himself to meet hers. And it's in that space where she feels she has to work for your attention that attraction deepens. When she sees that you will not tolerate disrespect, that you will not sacrifice your purpose just to win her over, she knows you are not like the others. She knows that if she wants to keep your presence, she must earn it. That's when admiration begins to grow. That's when obsession can take root. Because a man who respects himself enough to ignore games, drama, and unnecessary chasing is a man she cannot easily forget. So understand this clearly. Ignoring her isn't about punishing her. It's about prioritizing yourself. It's about showing that you are strong enough to walk away from situations that don't serve you. It's about proving through your actions that your worth is not tied to her reactions. And when you live from that place of strength, you don't just attract her. You command her respect, her admiration, and her desire. Because in the end, the man who values himself the most will always be valued the most by others.